Hey everyone, Steve Grogan here, founder of Geek Wing Chun. Today's video we're going over the sixth and final pillar of self-esteem from Dr. Nathaniel Branden, the practice of personal integrity. If you've never been here before, this was created as a supplemental channel to my main one, which is Geek Wing Chun. I'll give a link to that in the description box. Why did I have to create a sister channel? There's a video on this channel that describes that, so I will link to that as well. In the meantime, if you're interested in more mental health and self-esteem things and say how it relates to martial arts, you might be a martial artist, you might not, but either way, hit the subscribe button and smash that bell icon. You'll be notified when new footage is out. So, practice of personal integrity. What is integrity? It's when our behavior is congruent with our professed values. Notice he doesn't say our actual values, our true values, our real values. And what that means is if someone says, the significance of that, I should say, is that if somebody says, I value physical fitness, which means you got to exercise and you got to eat right. That's what they say. But then they eat McDonald's for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and the most exercise they get is shoveling the food in their mouths. Then their behaviors don't match up with what they're saying, what they're professing their values to be. So that's when someone like that would not have personal integrity. And integrity doesn't mean we'll always make the best choice. It just means that it only asks that our effort to find the best choice be authentic. And here's a little excerpt I found interesting. If I act against my judgment, I betray my mind. And this means basically you're engaging in hypocrisy. And he says, hypocrisy is the mind rejecting itself. And another quote to keep in mind, when it comes to self-esteem, I have more to fear from my own judgment than from anyone else's. You might wonder, why is that? Well, here's why. The next quote, my ego is the judgment from whom there's no escape. So in other words, you work at a job where a boss treats you like crap and says you'll never amount to anything, but then you quit that job and you go on to another. Well, unless that other boss is your neighbor, you don't have to worry about him anymore. But you are there wherever you go. Cost of hypocrisy is not minor discomfort. It's the spirit itself that is contaminated. And he talks about feeling guilty in relation to, hold on a second. Dealing with guilt. The essence of guilt is moral self-reproach. I did wrong when it was possible for me to do otherwise. Guilt always carries the implication of choice and responsibility. So for that reason, it's imperative we are clear on what is and is not in our power. Otherwise, or what is and is not a breach of integrity. Otherwise, we run the risk of accepting guilt inappropriately. So that goes back to understanding the limits of personal responsibility. He says there are 5 steps to restore one's sense of integrity with regard to a particular breach. 1, we must own the fact that it is we who have taken this particular action. We must accept and face the full reality of what we've done without disowning or avoidance. 2, we seek to understand why we did what we did. 3, if others are involved, we acknowledge explicitly to the relevant person or persons the harm we've done. We convey our understanding of the consequences of our behavior. We acknowledge how they've been affected by us. 4, we take any and all actions available that might make amends for or minimize the harm we've done. I gotta tell you, that one really hits home, because there's a certain thing in my life that got messed up because of my actions, and I've tried to any and all actions available that might make amends, to minimize or make amends or minimize the harm. And here's the thing, it talks about personal responsibility. You have to accept the fact that you could do all the right things to make up for the wrong thing, and the other person can still choose to reject it, and they can be unreasonable, and you're just going to have to live with the fact that that relationship is still damaged, and just live with the fact that it wasn't your choice to not accept the making of amends or what have you. But you just have to know that you did your best, which is kind of going back to the Four Agreements book, which I reviewed a long time ago. What was it? We must always do our best. Yeah. Number 5, we firmly commit ourselves to behaving differently in the future, which, again, you know, it doesn't mean you'll be recognized for it. Some people may say, oh, you'll never change, you're still the same, but you can't listen to them. And of course, the question is, what if our standards are irrational? And we have to honestly analyze that. And once we see that living up to our standards is leading us towards self-destruction, the time has come to question our standards. He talks about Joseph Campbell, who has a quote, "Follow your own bliss," which of course that can be dangerous if it's divorced from a rational context. Instead, Nathaniel Branden's quote is, "Live consciously, take responsibility for your actions and choices, respect the rights of others, and follow your own bliss." And he says, a moral life requires serious reflection. So in other words, not just skimming by superficially in life. Here's one of my favorite quotes. When he talks about avoiding responsibility and stuff, he says, "Lies do not work to protect self-esteem." So again, that's that whole you're not sweeping all the bad things under the rug. And we've got sentence completion to facilitate the practice of integrity. And lastly, he talks about keeping your integrity in a corrupt world. And then he says the challenge for people today is to maintain high personal standards while feeling that one is living in a moral sewer. And closes out by talking about the principle of reciprocal causation, which means behaviors that generate good self-esteem are also expressions of good self-esteem. Living consciously is both a cause and effect of self-efficacy and self-respect, and so is self-acceptance, self-responsibility, and all the other practices I described. So it's kind of like a chicken or the egg thing, but personally I would say you have to good self-esteem isn't going to just, if you don't have good self-esteem, it's not going to just suddenly be dropped into your mind or uploaded like programs in the Matrix, So I believe you'd have to start engaging in the behaviors that generate good self-esteem, even if it's uncomfortable. Of course it won't be if you're used to having crappy self-esteem and what have you. Then the good won't feel good because you're used to the feeling bad, so feeling good feels unnatural. But I digress, that's a whole other topic. So there you have it. We have covered all of the 6 pillars of self-esteem in depth. Of course, as you saw in some of these videos, there were parts where I could have gone even further in depth. If you would like me to, leave a comment and I'll definitely do that someday. But in the meantime, hit the subscribe button, smash the bell icon, and I'll see you in the next video.